when it comes to imposter syndrome, your inner critic is saying things that indicate that you're a fraud, right? That you're a fake, that somebody's going to find out. Just go ahead and put out that thing that you've created or say that thing that you want to say in public in front of everybody, and just wait, because they're going to know that you're a fraud, that you're not really cut out for this, right?
Hey, Anna, do you think people are listening?
Yeah, why wouldn't they be? We make business so fun.
Don't we? In that case, let's introduce ourselves.
Hey, it's Anna and Selena and the 15-ish minute coffee chat podcast. Talking business doesn't have to be boring, so dive into our coffee chat conversations and learn something new for your small business.
All right, go. Whatever. This is what we do. This is what we do.
Welcome to season 13 of the 15-ish minute coffee chat, a conversation providing tips for every entrepreneur and business owner.
Do you struggle with an inner critic that holds you back from reaching your full potential? For small, maybe it is full potential too. Was that like a Freudian slip? I have no idea. But for small business owners, imposter syndrome can manifest in various ways, from constantly questioning their decisions and abilities to fearing that they will be exposed as a fraud despite their achievements. This inner critic can lead to overworking, perfectionism, and even procrastination, as the fear of failure becomes paralyzing. Guest Heather Jones shares her insights on imposter syndrome and explains why our inner critic can be so noisy and loud.
I'm so excited for today's conversation. Like, this topic, I know is one, I don't know a single entrepreneur that has not encountered this at some point in their business owning or small business operations kind of efforts.
I think it's just a constant. Like, my levels of imposter syndrome have just changed as my business has grown from like the beginning to where it is now. Full roster of clients. I can't sleep. But right, it's not like it ever goes away. It feels, it just is a different demon, because
it morphs and changes because the responsibilities of being a business owner end up more. Anyway, the whole point being that this conversation today really is truly relevant across the board for anyone and everyone who's operating a business, right?
100%, Anna. If you were to give somebody a call to action question today, what would we be asking them?
I would be asking them, have you ever felt like you're not good enough despite your accomplishments? So give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's like a thumb sideways. So thumbs down or thumbs up. If you're watching live with us right now, drop it in the comments, because we are watching and we are listening. We want to respond to you and have conversations in the comments with you. But let us know, do you feel that imposter syndrome? Do you ever feel like you're not good enough? You're not expert enough? Even though you are trained and have years of experience and know what you're doing and are good at it, let us know. We want to hear.
It's so crazy. I know. I can't wait. Let's bring up the bio of Heather so we can read her bio. Let me just get myself together, guys. It's been one of those weeks. All right, let's go, Anna.
Yes. So Heather Jones is a life coach with Heather Jones Coaching. She's a native New Yorker who now resides in Alabama with her wonderful husband and 2 beautiful children. She's a lifelong lover of books, animals, and creating. Heather is also a certified life coach who has taken this long route with many exciting endeavors on her way here. At 18, she joined the Army, met her husband, and after serving 6 years, exited the military. Early on, she studied baking and pastry arts, which she happily implements in her own kitchen for friends and family. She entered the entrepreneurial world officially as an Etsy shop owner. And over time, while enjoyable, she realized there was something more she wanted to do. That's when she found her passion to inspire and empower others. And that is where she found coaching. So we are going, I know, we're going to be bringing up Heather now and inviting her to join us on stage.
Hi, Heather.
Hi.
First of all, I want to say that I don't know if I can say a little swear word, but you're such a badass that you were in the military. And because I know it's just a lot of hard work. It's a lot of physical and mental hard work.
Yeah.
And you did 6 years. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah. And I haven't talked to Anna about this, but this episode should be airing very close to the 4th of July. So I feel like this is such a relevant episode to have for 4th of July, to have not only a military spouse on, but also to know she is a veteran and that she has just, the epitome of what we do for our country. And she's right here.
Thank you.
So, welcome. Let's get started with our coffee cup selfie that we like to do with our guests before we start our questions. I didn't have an Alabama mug, so I'm so sorry. But on 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. There's like an invisible photographer, guys, that is just snapping a photo of us. I just feel it.
No, I'm glad he waits a little while because it takes me a minute to get the cup in the right place and then actually look at the camera instead of be like gazing off into like nowhere land at some point, right? It just seems to be the way it happens.
Okay, let's get started, Heather. Let's start with our first question, Anna.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about imposter syndrome, right? So our very first question is, can you talk to us just a little bit about that inner critic, that imposter syndrome, and some ways that we can effectively manage it? Like maybe how it shows up, but then also what do we do about it?
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, this is one of my favorite topics to discuss because I don't think anybody, period, no matter what your walk of life, gets out without experiencing imposter syndrome, or not imposter syndrome, rather, sorry, inner critic. So talking about the inner critic imposter syndrome is like my jam. So the inner critic is not necessarily, let me just start by saying this, it's not necessarily indicative of imposter syndrome. You can have an inner critic running and not have imposter syndrome. But for entrepreneurs, it's more likely that it is an indication of imposter syndrome. But one way or the other, if you have imposter syndrome, you do have that inner critic running. And so that's just your voice in your head that it's self-doubt. Some people have really mean ones. I've had a really mean inner critic voice running in my head over the years where it's just mean. It says ugly things about you. It just makes you feel like you're less than, just horrible. And depending on where that inner critic voice comes from, what has happened to trigger it, you're going to hear different things coming from that voice. So
you know what this reminds me of, Heather? We had a guest, I think it was 2 seasons ago, and she talked about what she called your personal board of directors. Okay. And these were people that had played a part in your life that you'd kept on this like board of directors inner critic panel.
yeah.
And so when you were doing something, you would hear one of those voices pop out and be like, you're doing that wrong because you're not good at this. Or, hey, like my science teacher would be like, you're not smart enough to be able to do that. That's not your strength. So you shouldn't be there in that space. And you hear these people coming at you. And it's almost like that's what kind of you're describing as an inner critic, is like that personal board of directors, all those voices of dissent and naysayers that told you at some point in time you weren't good enough, you couldn't do it, you weren't smart enough, you weren't strong enough, whatever that negative is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that totally, you're so right though, Heather, because the inner critic plays a very important role in your life when they show up, because they really take over prime real estate of your sense of self. And with April Garcia was our guest, she had said, you got to find that personal board of directors and change them out. You know what I mean? And so I'm super curious. So you identify this inner critic, and then what do you like? What does that inner critic say to this imposter syndrome? Is like they start to hold hands and they're like, hey, for the entrepreneurial, right?
Besties,
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, your inner critic is saying things that indicate that you're a fraud, right? That you're a fake, that somebody's going to find out. Just go ahead and put out that thing that you've created, or say that thing that you want to say in public in front of everybody, and just wait, because they're going to know that you're a fraud, that you're not really cut out for this, right? That's the kind of thing that the inner critic is saying in relation to the imposter syndrome.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So what do you do about that? How are you managing this? If we're going into that, and not necessarily because we do, I mean, what's one thing an entrepreneur could do on the daily to like negate that voice?
One of the things that's really simple that anybody can take and make their own is what we call the ABCs. And that's A, you acknowledge that the thought happened, right? So it doesn't mean that you take it as truth. It's about not fighting it, because fighting creates this back and forth battle. We don't want to battle it. We want to shush it. We want to put it in its place. So you acknowledge, okay, that thought happened. That's it. And then by acknowledging it, you take some of its strength. And then the next thing you do is your B, you breathe. You're taking deep belly breaths. And the thing about really taking those deep breaths that really go down like into the diaphragm is it's actually calming your mind and body. It's bringing you back to this present moment. It's literally allowing like a release of the muscles that have tightened up in response. And it's allowing you to activate the part of your brain that allows clarity, right? Because when we go into this stressful space, our brain's like, oh, fight, flight, freeze. And it goes somewhere else. It doesn't have the clarity and the things that we need to do to work through it. So when we're doing the deep breathing, you're doing a lot of stuff for yourself you probably don't even realize you're doing, but it's essential. And then you can take like a minute. If you need more, you do more. Like a solid minute of really deep breathing is going to start to calm your mind, calm your body, allow you to get into this present moment. When you've got that clarity of mind, that's when you can move on to your C, which is choose. So you choose your next thought. So whatever thought you had just had, you reframe it and you choose something that's more empowering. And so ABCs. Acknowledge, breathe, choose.
And choose. I love that so much. And I'm going to tell you, this happened with a person and I yesterday. And without me, you just gave me identifiers for each area we went into. That's exactly what we had to do. And you're right, it works.
So good. Yeah, I love to hear that you experienced that and that you had.
I want to call her and be like, guess what we did, but we didn't know we were doing. And I'm going to say to her, we did ABC. She'll think I'm crazy. And I'm like, hear me out. And I'm going to say, this is what Heather taught me today. We did it. I'm telling you guys, I'm not joking. This was just last night. And this totally clicks and resonates with me, Heather, because it makes sense. And I think the big key to this is if we can't acknowledge it, we can't identify, we can't like, and that you're so right about that. Oh.
And acknowledging it, I feel like takes away a little bit of the power behind the comment, right? Because you're saying, hey, I hear you. I'm there. I gotcha. I know what you're saying to me right now. Yeah. Where when we feel so uncomfortable, often we'll just try and ignore or just put it compartmentalized or push it away. Yeah. But by acknowledging it and then addressing it by the B and the C in that way, you're effectively taking the power and giving yourself back the position of dominance in that moment. And that's so important for imposter syndrome, because the whole idea behind it is you don't feel good enough. You don't feel like you're worth the space you're taking up. And that's a very defeating place to be when you're a business owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say the hardest thing when I've gone through imposter syndrome is then watching others in my same field, like soar and excel, doing exactly what I said I could do, but I stalled my own self because that inner critic was super strong. Yeah. And that's the hardest part is is watching, like, we know when you're sitting in that imposter syndrome and you watch others do it and you just like, you almost beat yourself up more sometimes.
Yeah. Especially when you say, dang it, I had that same idea, or dang it, I wanted to do it, but now it gets worse because now you're copying somebody else in your field or you're using their idea. I could see how this is a vicious circle that we can get ourselves into.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump to question number 2. So, procrastination, and that ties in exactly with what we were just talking about, right? It's almost like procrastination, or sometimes like failure to launch. We could call it that, or you could call it like paralysis, decision paralysis. Like all of that are very much tied to imposter syndrome. So, what advice do you have for business owners who are struggling with procrastination, or any of those terms I use?
I'd like, before I answer advice, could I just give a little bit of a foundation of what procrastination is, like why we experience procrastination? Okay,
Yes.
cool. So procrastination is a fear pattern, right? We procrastinate. Generally, it's attached to perfectionism. So when we fall into tendencies of perfectionism, we're afraid to put something out because we're afraid of what the result is going to be, the response from others who see that thing, right? So we procrastinate putting it out because it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect in our minds. And so we procrastinate because we're in a space of fear. If we don't put it out, we can't be mocked, made fun of, judged, put down, right? Nobody else can pick us apart. Not that they're going to do that anyways, but this is the story that we're telling ourselves. This is what's going to happen. We get so wrapped up in it. It's so convincing and we believe it so deeply. And we just sit in that space of procrastination. And so knowing that it's a fear allows you to recognize where it's coming from and then attend to it. And so you can start to look at what is the fear there, right? Realistically, logically, what is the fear? I'm afraid I'm going to get made fun of if I put that out. I'm afraid people are going to realize that I'm a fraud, right? And then, so it's a bit of a process, right? There's not just a ABC answer for this. It really does go back to having to do like deep inner work and really work through it and take the time and give yourself permission to take that time. But looking at what's behind that fear, what it stems from, and then coming up with what I call, oh gosh, I'm brain farting. Like doing exercises. What's that now?
It happens to the best of us.
But yeah, coming up with exercises to get past that fear once you can pinpoint what that fear is for you.
So
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I want to say, just saying, yes, it's a fear pattern. And I've gone to like things that I have procrastinated on. And I've always just said, oh, I work better when I only have 1 minute left to the deadline. But I realized that's not how I want to work. I don't like to be in that chaotic space. And so I think I'm going to work on that. I'm going to actually start to evaluate why I'm not just jumping into it, like what the fear is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I will also note that procrastination can come from other places, right? Like boredom, for example. And that's super simple. That doesn't necessarily mean you have imposter syndrome, but in relation to imposter syndrome, because that's the topic that we're talking about. So I want to be clear, just because you're procrastinating doesn't mean that you're imperfectionism, doesn't mean that you have imposter syndrome. But for the purposes of this discussion, because that's what we're talking about, that is where that particular connection is drawn.
No, that makes sense. I think that's a great thing to say, because obviously this is for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so how that can correlate. I love it.
Yeah. I feel like even though you're saying it's not as simple as the ABCs, what you just described in terms of addressing procrastination when it is tied to imposter syndrome really is the ABCs. Like you're like, acknowledge it or identify what that fear is. But then you get to take the next two things, are like taking the steps to say, how am I going to fix this with me? Am I going to launch it anyway? Am I going to just write the article as is? Am I going to just say that I am this thing until I believe it, right? And that's that choice phase of the C's, I feel like, where you still have to put into play that action. Otherwise, you never get past the procrastination, and you're never going to see your business grow if you don't ever implement any of the things you're afraid of, right? You'll always just sit in that little space you're comfortable. And we know that's not a great space for entrepreneurs, right? For some, if you choose to be there, that's fine. But for the most part, we are here for a growth experience, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and a growth experience. Can I just say, so Heather, while we were preparing for the show, I went on to one of my favorite tools, but Answer the Public. And I had just put in what people were asking about imposter syndrome on the Google and the Bing and the Yahoo. And one of the questions that had come up was, can imposter syndrome be cured? And I thought, what an interesting question. Now, obviously, by more of it, just, and I was like, gosh, I feel like that just is going to sit with us forever. I don't know if there could be a cure, I think, but acknowledging and using your ABC, knowing that this is going to happen and how you tackle it and get through it. But I just wanted to share that was a number one question asked about imposter syndrome. I don't know. What do you think of that? Right?
So I actually went through a program to learn about imposter syndrome, to learn from somebody who had done the research and had the science backing to the process that she uses. And the answer that she would give that I took from that is absolutely imposter syndrome can be healed. And so I think it's important that we differentiate a couple of things here. Is a lot of people use the term imposter syndrome when they mean self-doubt. It's not entirely the same thing. It's like the inner critic. If you're running imposter syndrome, you do have self-doubt. Just because you have self-doubt does not mean you have imposter syndrome. And just to make that make a little bit more sense, imposter syndrome isn't just the self-doubt we experience up here with the inner critic. It's who we believe we are. So it is how you identify at the core. And if you don't identify as a coach or a business owner or a successful person or whatever it is that you're trying to be or wanting to be identified as, but if you don't truly identify as that at the core, that is running imposter syndrome. And it can be healed. That doesn't mean the self-doubt never comes back, but that means that you know who you are. You know that you are a person that does that thing. You are that person. And that is what shifts when you heal imposter syndrome.
I feel like, okay, so I'm going to throw up the third question because I feel like what you're talking about right now absolutely fits with the third question, which was what are common misconceptions about imposter syndrome that you've encountered? And that would definitely be one of them. The distinguishing idea of it's not just self-doubt, it really is to your core and your self-awareness of who you are and what you are, right? Identifying what you truly believe about yourself.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, Heather, probably what you think I am or whatever is not what I am. I literally, to my core, only allow myself to say I'm a great friend. That is all that I allow myself to be in my core. And and great friend means also a lovely wife, and I try to be the best mom that I can be. That's to my core. I don't allow any other things to be part of my core.
Yeah.
And so you saying that, I was like, wow, I cannot sit here and say to Heather, if she asked me, do you feel that you have a great show? And I'll be like, yeah, but I don't feel it to my core because I'm scared if I say yes to you, bad's gonna happen.
I feel like we have
I want to hug you.
I know, but this is true story because that is such a great question that you asked is what do you feel? And guys, this is not scheduled either. If you're listening to this live on LinkedIn or on YouTube, please share in the chat. Do you believe are you living your core life? Or please answer that for Heather. Tag her on social, just because I think that is such a great way to say, are you feeling the imposter syndrome? Yeah. And great question.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so but let me
Anna
add.
knows me. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So
Yeah.
in my head, I'm like, yeah, but there's a kind of a fake it till you make it component there
Mhm.
because we do have a great show. I'm just going to put that out there right now. Anybody listening, this is a great show, right? So we do have a great show. And then, so we say, yes, we have a great show because we know that it's a great show. We've been told 100 times it's a great show. So it comes to that point where does fake it till you make it work? Is that one of those strategies that you throw out there for people? Like, just keep saying it until you truly believe it. Does that actually work? No.
My opinion is no.
Okay.
And again, this goes back to the training that I received and specifically working with imposter syndrome as a coach. Fake it till you make it and do it scared. That was the other one that like she was like, no. And I'm like, tell me more because that always made sense to me. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing it till I do it, right? The thing about fake it till you make it and do it scared is once again, it goes back to being in that space of stress. Fear brings stress, right? And it brings a reaction in the body. And so when we're in that state of stress, and especially when we're in it for an extended period of time, we remain in fight, flight, freeze, which we may not even be specifically aware of, right? We might not be like heart pounding, freaking out. Like, what do I do? What do I do? But internally, there is that reaction that's going on in the brain and the body. And that wreaks havoc when you spend any period of time living in that space. And so, could you fake it till you make it? Maybe at some point you would make it. I can't necessarily dispute that, but what are you doing to yourself in the process of doing it that way? I would say go through believing that there's work that can be done as you go. Like you can, I'm not saying this very well, like the fake it part, like pretending that you can do the thing, pretending that you're doing the thing, right? Work towards doing the thing, but also do the inner work at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Do the personal development and the self-care at the same time.
Yeah.
So that you're bringing the calm and the peace and the groundedness and all of those things back in there to that scenario with you.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's really rephrasing and using better language, like because sometimes that term, it really does, it viscerally affects people sometimes because you're like, this word fake equals this, meaning you're not real, meaning what you do is not real. You know what I mean? And it's, no, I totally get that. And you just, Heather, you made me like, I'm reflecting, I'm looking at Anna on the top. So if you guys are listening to the podcast, we have Heather on the power pose. And I feel like you think we're doing yoga. Sorry, that was the wrong choice of words. Don't ask me. I'm going to, my body does not like yoga because it just makes noises. You know what I mean? But no, there's 3 spots on our TV thing right now. And anyway, Anna's above me and I'm just looking and I've said this before, right? Anna exudes this confidence that I wish I had. She does believe to the core, right? And I'm not saying that I don't believe, but it's funny. Like Anna's like, yeah, we have a great show. Yeah. And I'm like behind her going, yeah, we have a good show. And then I'm like hiding or I'm scared. I don't want the universe to hear. I don't know. And it's been good to be around a person like Anna though, because there's this confidence building. And I would imagine, and I'll ask you this, even though it wasn't on the list of questions we gave you, would you say being around someone that does walk like Anna helps somebody that walks like Selena?
Yeah, I definitely think that the people that we spend our time around, their energy impacts us, whether negatively or positively. So we spend our time around people that bring a higher vibration, if you will, or a positive energy, or however you like to say that, and that is who you spend the most time with, then absolutely that can positively impact you. I don't think, and there will be some level of change, right? But I think that at the same time, you have to recognize, identify, and be willing to give yourself permission to continue to, I'm always going to go back to the inner work, right? No matter how many amazing people we spend our time around, we still have to spend time with us.
Yeah. I think what I take from this is so interesting to me, because for me, when I look at specifically the relationship Selena and I have and supporting each other in that way, right? I think in my head, I am a fake it till you make it. I will say, yep, with 100% confidence when inside that confidence is not there necessarily, but I am going to tell you
Yeah.
that it is there in that sense, right?
This also works when she says, nope, it's not there. You didn't give it to me. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah. So I do appreciate the reminder and the guide to make sure you're doing that inner work, because that is definitely a hugely important piece of ensuring that at some point you can confidently say, and there is none of that fake it till you make it happening. But at the same time, there's just as much strength in the questioning of what you're doing and having those people that say, hey, have you thought about this? And let's consider that, right? To help you so that you do feel more confident about, I've gone through all the scenarios that could have happened here and I've covered them, and now I'm ready to move forward. I think that's one of the major pieces that allows me to do that. I'm like, Selena and I have talked this to death. If I've missed something and somebody feels like they need to point it out, it's going to either be too small or we really missed the mark here, and I probably deserve it at that point. That's where that comes from. So I love the idea of make sure you're surrounded by people that are giving you that both positive and critiquing feedback that you need, but also that allow you to build that confidence that you're doing it right at the same time. I love that. Heather, so good. Okay.
Yeah, like super so good. I have like 10 more questions now just because of that. But I realize we're just gonna have to
I
invite
could talk
Heather
for
back on.
8,000 more hours.
I know.
Honestly. Yeah, we can continue the conversation somewhere
Yes.
else.
Okay, good. Heather said to us before we went live, she's like, look, I like to talk. And we were like, us too. And we were like, this may not fit into the scope of time we have, but we've been really restraining ourselves because Heather, I'm proud of you, because I don't know if I could do it, because I know you have a lot of because I'm even lunging into and another thing. But no, Heather, honestly, I think all the things you talked about, like the ABCs, just they're really just dialing into the core question is going to be my number one thing you've said today, is just like, look, like to your core, do you believe, are you what you know your deep core is? And it's just funny, and nothing's wrong with saying that I'm a good friend, but I don't allow myself to say I'm all the things that I do, to people around.
I'm going to be building some mirror affirmations for Selena that are going to go up on her mirror. So every day she can get up and start telling herself positives, all the things she is, more than a good friend, mom, and wife.
Hey, look, and we're gonna put it in there because, again, I love to research. Me and Anna love to research. Heather has an Etsy shop that does have affirmation things there that you probably could go check out if you're a Selena, because you are going to need that. Print those bad boys up and stick it all over your bathroom mirror, because that's where we spend a lot of time. Or if Apple could hurry up and make like a roving wallpaper, so then I could just have it change out to.
They actually are for wallpaper for your phone. That's how they're both. Yeah, I have printable ones, but I have the ones that can go on your phone.
Okay. All right. So we're going to link to that Etsy shop so you can go take a look at those affirmations. Tell us, Selena, pull up the other toolkit that we have for Heather.
Yes. With us today. I'm all like, what are we doing now? I'm excited about all the things. But okay, Heather, we always ask our guests, hey, what's something that you would love to share with our audience that you share with yours? And would you tell everybody what this toolkit is?
Yes, thank you. So I wrote a book a couple of years ago when I was doing my own transition from being a stay-at-home mom to starting my own home-based business. And so this book was written for women who are currently staying home and they want to either start a home-based business, or they've started one, but they're not living in the identity of being a business owner. And so it is some of the strategy of starting a business, but it's a lot more of the mindset stuff.
That's so great. Especially, I'm just going to throw this out there. Selena showed that TikTok today of that kicker. What is he? The Chiefs, the Kansas City.
We're not going to name names just in case. We don't want our thing to go viral. But no, it was just it was a keynote speaker that's going viral right now for just saying to a bunch of women graduates that, hey, you should know your vocation should be to take care of your man and have babies. And it was like, you just said that to people that just got a bachelor's and master's? Okay. Anyway, look, we don't have much time. We got to make sure we talk about it. But yes, Heather, thank you for writing
that
this.
up and then shut this show down. This is
No,
not
no,
okay.
no. I know. I'm like, because we
We'll
have
send
our
you the
other
link
guests.
afterwards. I just saw it today. I was like, what?
Yeah. Look, Heather and Anna, once we complete this recording, I will jump into our other thing with our other guests. And then Heather, you can hear a little lowdown from Anna. So you can just be in uproar because it's just like, I got what me and Anna got what he was trying to say, but it came out so wrong. So anyway, you guys, we are going to have Heather's toolkit on our show notes on our blog. We will list them on our podcast description. So no worries. I think it's safe to say there is a lot of parents that they're working too. This is for the moms. And I love that you made something like this for them. So yeah, Heather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us the best places our guests can find you if they'd like to reach out, learn more, be involved with Heather Jones Coaching.
Yeah.
Okay. I like to mention 2 places, if that's okay. So my favorite is my YouTube channel because I share all the things. Like I talk about all the things, I teach on all the things. That I have lots of videos out there that are loaded with information. So I like for people to go there and check me out. You get a vibe for like my personality, what my approach is, that kind of thing. Of course, you can comment, but it's not the best place for a back and forth. So if you wanted more of a back and forth with me, my other favorite place would be Facebook.
Perfect. All right. YouTube down there. And all of these will be linked in our show, in our blog on AnnaandSelena.com. All of these contact locations, but Facebook and YouTube are the 2 best places to go learn more about Heather. All right. We have come to the end of our show. Heather, we just want to say thank you so much for being our guest today. Thank you for talking to us about imposter syndrome and planting so many great thoughts in our heads. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's 15-ish minute coffee chat. And we can't wait to see you at our next show and on any of our social and or podcast platforms.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Heather. Oh my gosh. Did they actually make it to the outro music?
I told you this would work, Selena.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in to today's show. Now head on over to AnnaandSelena.com to listen to more of the 15-ish minute coffee chat. We've got over 100 episodes, all geared to making your businesses more fun and profitable.